you can get all the insight on Mutant TV.
I've just returned from watching The Final Destination in glorious 2D, believe it or not. Unfortunately, the film was advertised online as playing in 3D, so I made the trip out exclusively to see it in 3D because I love the heck out of 3D horror films. If you've seen any of my other reviews for them, I always say if you have a chance, go watch a horror film in 3D. I made the trip out there because it was advertised at that particular theater as being in 3D, and when I got there it was only 2D. So to say I was disappointed is an understatement, to say the least, because although you may see Final Destination 3 in my hand and 1 and 2 up behind me, I've never watched any of these all the way through. For some reason the concept just never appealed to me. I mean, it's an interesting idea of people escaping death, but I don't know, I like a corporeal villain for people to react to. Just the idea of this, of just accidents happening everywhere, I just never found it scary. It really, the whole thing just plays out as an excuse to be an elaborate killing set piece, and I guess that's what they all are. Now, The Final Destination, the film that was released this year, although there have been 4 of them, supposedly this is the final one. Just like Friday the 13th, the final chapter was the final one. Has a new director named David R. Ellis. I'm not familiar with that name, but I was very familiar with the writer and director of the previous 3 films, which is strange that they didn't really appeal to me. James Wan was the director, and Glenn Morgan was the writer. And those of you X-Files fans are out there, you'll recognize their name from some of the best stuff that came out of the X-Files series. So I'm a big fan of those guys, but strangely I'm not a fan of this series of films for some reason. The film basically starts the same. You see it in the trailer. This 4 friends are at a racetrack watching a race, and one of them has a premonition of death, decides they should all leave before it happens, obviously. And they spend the rest of the film trying to outrun death or prevent death from taking each one of them. That's the basic plot, okay? From what I've seen of the previous 3 films, that's kind of the plot for all of them, but that's okay. You know, Joe Bob Briggs always said, if you're going to do a sequel, make the exact same film every single time. So, the people that enjoy that formula, the people that resonates with, they'll enjoy each one of them. So, hopefully, you're one of those people that does enjoy this formula in this particular series. Unfortunately, I'm not one of those people. In The Final Destination, we basically have the hero guy that starts having visions. Why he has visions, who knows? It's never explained. He just has a vision because the plot tells him to. There's a jerky, sporty jock type guy, except we never see him play sports. He talks about golfing and he goes to the pool and whatnot. Interestingly enough, he's the most interesting out of all those characters because he's the only one that had any real traits that came across on the screen. Then you have his ex-girlfriend who was totally bland, and then the girlfriend of the lead character who was just another bland character. I can imagine viewing The Final Destination for the first time when that series started back in 2000 or 2001, 2002, when they were first released. I can imagine seeing that as kind of a breath of fresh air because there have been such a multiplicity of slasher films and killer stalker films and serial killer films over the years. So we've seen pretty much every way you can kind of stab, slice, or hack up a human body. So the Final Destination films, the cool thing about them is that they take those killings to the next level, where buildings falling apart, elaborate explosions that send debris through people's bodies, all kinds of things. So I can't even begin to run down Streebo slasher stats. I mean, this thing is just filled with explosions and just falling buildings and people burning and vehicles going haywire and people getting dragged down the street on fire and just all kinds of stuff. I mean, the killing set pieces are really elaborate. The problem was, I was watching this stuff in 2D, so a lot of this, the CGI just looks like CGI. I mean, the seam is really showing on the CGI in this film. Now, I'm willing to concede the fact that in 3D it probably plays a lot better. The film's probably more entertaining and the effects come across as more convincing, but the 2D version was not the case. I mean, they really shouldn't release 2D versions of these films if they're not going to play the 3D version everywhere. I mean, it rips some of us off, you know, and especially when there's false advertising. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it once you make a 30-minute drive to the theater Well, I mean, what are you going to do? Turn around and drive home? No, you came there to see the movie. I mean, they ripped you off because it's not in 3D. They said it would be. You got to sit there and watch it. So that's the way it happens. But the name of the game with this film is it's just all about the killing set pieces. Crashes, explosions, yada yada yada. You see a good chunk of them in the preview to the film, and they go on and on. Sorry for squeaking in the background. That's my cat running around like a crazy person. The problem I had with the film, I didn't find it suspenseful, and I sure didn't find it scary because all the kills were pretty much telegraphed. I mean, you could really see them coming from miles and miles away. And the characters are just so weak, so thinly drawn, so thinly sketched out that you don't care about them. You really don't give a crap about a single one of them. Now, there was only one character in the film that I actually did care about, and that was a secondary character, the security guard that the guys meet at the racetrack. This was the only character that was actually fully developed. It's real. He has a mother, that he had a wife and kids, that he's having these personal crisis of faith. And that was a real character. So obviously they know how to create real characters. They just didn't want to do it with the rest of the characters, with the main cast. There's no suspense. There's no scares. If you like gore, there are some decent gore sequences. There are just a little bit of practical effects in the film. Most of it's CGI, so it looks pretty much like CGI in 2D. In 3D, it probably works a lot better. Like My Bloody Valentine in 3D. I did see that in 3D. And those effects came off great because it was 3D. I haven't rewatched it in 2D because I'm pretty certain they'll look hokey in 2D. But that's just the nature of that beast. If this is the series that you enjoy this kind of things, then go check it out. I guess it's more of the same. So if you need that final destination, elaborate, death scene, you can get it. Unfortunately for old Streebo, it just didn't resonate with me. I mean, there were a few things I enjoyed. Yeah, obviously I love a good killing sequence as much as anybody. There's one set of breasts in the film, and that's about it. So on the Streebo Screamometer, I have to give the final destination a 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10, that means it's straight up mediocre. I'm not going to recommend it. If you enjoy the series, I understand if you want to go see it. It's probably more of the same, so you might not be too thrilled by it. But the elaborate death sequences are okay. Perhaps the 3D version is much more entertaining. It might be worth 1 or 2 more points, but I can't tell you that because I was unable to view the 3D version. So if you have a chance to see it in 3D, I will still tell you, go see it in 3D because every horror film is good in 3D. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's like magic. So it's been a busy weekend for MVP. Be sure to check out my review for Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 right here on YouTube. Catch up with everything going on at Mutantville Productions over at mutantville.com. Check out the brand new MVP blog. We've got all kinds of great stuff on there. And we'll see you here next time, MVP.
And Mutantville, I'll be keeping my eye on you.
Unfortunately, the very end of the film, this is not spoilery, but I gotta tell you, the very end of the film, the last kill sequence before the film is over, switches into this corny, hokey X-ray vision. So you don't even see a real. It's not any kind of real effect. There's no people involved in it. When it switches and it becomes this goofy X-ray vision, like you're suddenly Superman and you see everybody's bones breaking and this and that. I mean, it's totally insane. So they ruined the last sequence of the film.